Okay, so you've seen stuff on businesses trying to use AI and data science to make money. So how does this all work? How do you start with AI to make money when companies are losing money across the board? The question is, where do you start? Do you start with Claude, ChatGPT, maybe Copilot? And I think all of those are wrong, and they miss a very fundamental point. So in this video, I'm going to explain that point, and I'm going to take my experience as a data analyst and show you how companies in the real world are actually using, data to make money, and it's a lot simpler than you would think. So first of all, a lot of times a new technology comes out and it's supposed to help people out. It's supposed to do all this stuff, and it's awesome. And instead of companies being like, great, how can we take this new technology and have it adapted so it could benefit me? They end up trying to force themselves to adapt to the technology instead. And this is why you're seeing companies like Microsoft force chatbots, vibe coding and stuff down everyone's throats, and it's not working. And that's because you don't force the people to adapt to the technology. You define and refine and adapt the technology, so it's actually useful and actually helps people and their daily lives. And that's how you make money with it. So what problem does data science and AI, what wouldn't they actually solve? Well, we're going to look at it at the simplest terms. People need data to make decisions. How do you know if your marketing efforts are going to be successful? Or how do you know if you're doing a good job controlling inventory? It's the data. And, how you showcase the data in an effective way. You might have maybe Excel reports or dashboards. You can get more complex, but that, it's fundamentally what you're doing. At its simplest, you're setting things up so that you have easy access to data and informations for your decision making. And it's the decision making that's going to make you more money ultimately. You can, make it more complex by adding complex forecasting models or adding LLMs in there like chatbots to, maybe automate analysis or, do anomaly detection. However, at its simplest, it's about getting that right information to make those key decisions. So how does this work in practice? That's the kind of philosophical aspect of it. How does this work in practice? Well, here's your typical data architecture. You have your data sources, maybe your database or your CRM or financial statements, or maybe even, Excel files where you're, manually writing things down. Anyway, this is where the raw data is kept. Then you have your data warehouse or your data lake. A data warehouse, it's a type of database. Well, it's a normal database, but it's a database that you only use for analytics. And the reason you have a data warehouse is you have your main database that needs to be performant. So think companies like Google or Amazon. You don't want to have downtime in your main database. That could slow down the site, that can cause issues, and stuff like that. So you don't want to do anything that could mess up that main database, including having an analyst play around with data, doing like inserts and stuff in there. So you have the data warehouse, which is a separate database, but with a lot of the same data. So you don't put strain on your main data sources. And that's the data warehouse. The difference between it and a data lake, they're pretty much the same, except the data warehouse, it's typical row column structured database, whereas the data lake, it's unstructured. You can have file systems, all sorts of things, and they're like images and everything like that. And then you have your dashboard, and your models, where you can, view the data to, in a clear format to analyze it. So you have your data structures, and then on the other end, you have, your dashboard and, models, your analysis. In the middle, you have your ETL, your extract, transform, load, which are like little Python scripts and tools that connect everything together. So it's pretty simple, and you can, build it out and add all sorts of different things, but fundamentally that's all it is. So that is fundamentally, how you make money and start, with AI and data at your company, or just in general. It's about the decision making. We went over, its core use and how to architect everything at, the macro level. And I hope you enjoyed. Best of luck.